Hello everyone, this is the guy that just entered his stream for Lucca's Supreme Pool session, and welcome to this AFK journey video. So in this AFK journey video, I'm going to give my first impression after pulling Lucca to Supreme Plus as well as testing him in various game modes to just talk about the viability of this unit. And as usual, I would like to disclaim that this is just a first day impression. Similar to the Tarsi situation, things might change in the next few days if we find a viable way to use this unit or find a viable method to make this unit look good in the next few days. So right now, at least based on the initial testing, I'm not going to run through his kit extensively. I'm just going to talk about things which I find good about this unit and things which I find not so good. But I'll say for this unit, it's more not so good than good. So the good thing about this unit, number one, he's extremely tanky with a whole bunch of shield, a whole bunch of damage reduction, as well as additional shield from the EX weapon to make him super duper tanky. Okay, so he's a very tanky unit, very good for you to just put him on the front line to soak damage or even take the assassin damage. But that's pretty much it for him. Why? Because if you take a look at everything else about his kit, very counterintuitive. One, let's start off with the EX weapon part. Unshakable Tie. This skill provides an attack buff for the ally behind Lucca. So the Lucca must be placed behind him to get the attack buff and also to get the shield on Lucca. So this skill, yes, he's steadfast. You can't actually stun him with all these different control abilities stated here, right? But the thing is, this thing doesn't provide a shield for your ally. So you putting your ally behind, so this is how it looks like, right? You can have up to 3 allies behind him. So we're gonna put, like, for example, these 3 units as an example. So you need at least 2 units to get his EX weapon level 3 up for that AoE debuff. But at the same time, if you put your unit behind like this, behind him, and your ally don't get the shield buff, they are very vulnerable to assassins. Which is why I say it's counterintuitive, because his kit is supposedly to protect your ally, but you are risking your ally's positioning to make this unit work, which is like, why will you do that? Because even if, let's say now this shield is able to, this unit is able to sort of open the distance between the assassin and your ally with the ultimate itself, but before he charges his ultimate, your ally probably loses like more than half the HP or probably would have died, because the buff that he provides from the EX weapon is not a shield, it's attack buff. So it makes your ally hit harder, but the thing is, you're risking them in a very vulnerable position. So very counterintuitive there. And another thing is, if you take a look at his whole kit, right, he has this ability to sort of disarm, has this ability to get a shield up, has this ability to dispel control effect, as well as the ability to reduce damage, but he has no way to draw the attention to him because he has no taunts. Right, the only way, like I mentioned before with regards to the kit, is this quick slam ability where he repositions one enemy and then the enemy is in front of him and then they will change the aggro to this unit. But then again, right, if you're fighting a whole bunch of range units, then how are you going to change the aggro into this unit? I don't get it. So that's the part where I think it's also super duper counterintuitive, because he's a tank that is very meaty, but he has no way to draw attention to himself except for this like very mediocre ability to reposition one unit. And yes, this is a good stun that is able to stun the enemy for 2 seconds, but then it is also dependent on the opponent's lineup. Right, the AoE is very small, so if the opponent is running like a full range setup like I mentioned earlier, then yeah, you're just going to get one unit, stun that one unit, and that's pretty much what this unit does. And another thing that you guys might be wondering, oh yeah, this unit is very tanky, can he carry the team? The answer is no, he doesn't do that much damage. His kit doesn't have that much like damage inbuilt into this unit, so you really need your other units to be the damage dealer. And I feel that this unit doesn't protect the ally well enough for you to warrant his usage as a team unit. So like, yes, right now, where can you use this unit? Number one, obviously your Terran trial stages. Okay, so right here we're going to talk about the unit and showcase the battle, and then talking about his strengths and weaknesses. And I'll also be doing a very simple Lucius versus Lucca comparison, since they're both A-level tanks. So let's start the battle. For Lucca's case, you need to put him at least in front of 2 allies for the allies to get the buff, as well as for him to get the AoE disarm. So you can see that this unit has a massive shield at the start of battle, with the Courageous Roar for damage reduction being a super duper meaty mid shield. And he also has this disarm ability, which disarm all the 3 frontliners, Mikola, Almas, as well as Torrent. So to a certain extent, you can say that he's a very, very disruptive anti-melee tank that you can use against certain lineups. Specifically, I'll say right now would be Mauler melee teams in general, because most of the teams run more range unit than melees except for maulers. So that is one position I can see him being used for the PvP side, which I'll showcase later. But for the normal AFK stage pushing side, right, you want to use him as a tank. You risk your unit's positioning because he has some positioning restriction and he doesn't do that much damage. And another thing about him is he has no taunt to draw the attention away to be the mid shield that he wants to be, which is why I think to use him is more restrictive to yourself than your opponent, because it's easy to play around him and it's easy to find units that counters what he wants to do for the team itself. Right, so that's one thing which I realized after using him. I'll say the key problem with Lucca is his forcefulness to be used. Like if I want to make sure that he gets his AoE debuff or the maximum buff on my team itself, then I'm actually risking my team being a lot weaker to a lot of other different situations. And that's why I think he's not good, because of this reason. Like you're forced to a vulnerable position just to make this unit work, and this unit ain't even that good, because if you're talking about anti-melee wise, there are a lot of other better tanks right now. For example, the prime example right here is Torrent. Torrent is also insanely good against melee. Torrent is also insanely meaty to tank up damage, and on top of that, Torrent has a way to win you the match with the ultimate to counter kill all the melee enemies itself. So why would you want to go for Lucca, which is technically an anti-melee unit but doesn't win you the game, than to use Torrent with the ability to win you the game if all the enemies focus fire on Torrent itself? So that's one problem. And then comparing Lucca to Lucius right now, I'll say this, right? If you want a tank that's individualistic, then Lucca is the unit to go for. But mostly tanks would be better if the tank has some sort of control, has some sort of disruption, or just a very simple defensive kit for your whole team, like Lucius, for example, a massive shield for all adjacent allies with a decent size AoE, a debuff ability that reduces attack so that your team can survive better, or even just a heal for your team, or just a simple taunt for your team itself. That I think as a tank, Lucius actually does a better job protecting your team than Lucca. So PvE wise, I think he's definitely usable if you need some control within your Rowan teams, you need some control within your other teams, and you want a tank character. But being a tank, being a mid shield, I do think that Lucius does a way better job there. So that's my thought about him in the PvE sense. Now moving towards the PvP side. Okay, so the PvP side is where I can highlight his problem even more. So now if you were to just take on, for example, okay, let's say we take on, no, not a bad example. Okay, so now let's say we take on tank right here, right? So we take on tank right here. So yeah, this character has a steadfast, but against this opponent team where there's no control, maybe just confining spell, there's not much the steadfast can do. So what I will say for Lucca is that, yeah, maybe he's good against Iron Almas, but then he's the only unit that steadfast, which means that Iron Armor still will affect your ally unless you put in maybe like a Lily May or maybe a Dunleer to just prevent that from happening. And that way, why would you want to use Lucca in that case, right? So I'm just going to showcase one battle in PvP with him. Might not win, but we can give it a try. So just to showcase his power here, we're going to put him here. And then we're going to put some like units behind him to get an attack buff as well as the maximum shield on him. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with a very heavy sustain lineup so that I can sort of draw out the battle to show you guys the issues with this character. So I think something like this, and then we're going to put a Scarletta, for example, just in case. And let's start this battle, okay? So you guys can see very, very meaty. He's going to go up and soak all the damage on the front line. No issue surviving, no issue tanking. Also have the debuff to store out the enemy's team. Very, very good stuff. Okay, so that's his strength for sure. Then we have all the heals from Hewin, all the heals from Damien, and buys enough time for Scarletta to descend. Okay, but right here he sort of melted to Lily May because he's Supreme Plus versus a Paragon 2 Lily May. Okay. So we're gonna go at 3 times since he died. He's the star of the show, so we're gonna take a look at like the record later on to see what exactly happened there. Okay, so let's go through the replay itself. Okay, so right here, Courageous Roar, the initial shield as well as the shield from the second ability makes him relatively tanky. So Lily May cancels his ultimate right here, and then all the different damage from Fresto, all the different damage from the different damage sources slowly wither him down once his Courageous Roar damage reduction debuff, damage reduction buff is off. So that's where he melt really quickly. Another reason is also because of the difference in tier. He's Supreme Plus, where the enemy is about Paragon tier, so they hit a lot harder against him. But yeah, you guys can see he pretty much does like what I mentioned, just go up and soak damage, and that's his role. Like, you are just using him as a mid shield, and he doesn't even do his job as a mid shield that well. So in terms of PvP wise, like, I think he might have a team, but right now it's just a very forceful way to try to make him work, which is why I think he's not good in PvP as well. So that's why, as I mentioned earlier, he could be a volunteer unit, or yeah, he could be one of the like weaker units to be released, at least for this season so far. So that's it for this video. Just a simple showcase and review for this character, and I'll see you guys again in my next few Lucca videos. Bye guys.